Yeah, and it's always been, I mean, some of that is like we have somewhat Hollywood roots. You know, Danny was a Hollywood producer, and that's when he first started getting into the internet. Half of our team went to film school. We all, you know, we have like a really, I don't want to say Hollywood sensibility, but that like kind of cinematic storytelling sensibility that you see it in all of our work too. I think ultimately where that all comes together is I'm always trying to remind people the business we are in is the attention marketplace, you know, and I think there are some agencies that specialize in things that are like more about designing systems and all that, but ultimately most agencies at their core are being hired to solve an attention problem of like we need people to pay
That's good.
attention to us, right?
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Agency Insider. It's been such an incredible journey these past few months as we've been talking with all types of agency owners, and we've heard stories, some good, some not so good. We all been there. We've all been, gone through those moments in our lives as agency owners. But nonetheless, it's just been an incredible journey as we've seen so many people and we've been able to have some really cool conversations. Well, today we have a special guest, Joshua Belhumeur. I don't know if I said that right. I was trying to be fancy, man. I was trying to
You
make
nailed
it.
the fancy. That was great.
I nailed it. All right. Well, Joshua, he is part of an incredible team. He's the CEO of BRINK. This is a really cool. I always have the website open whenever I have a conversation. I always have the websites of agency owners. It's just so cool to see the dynamic. We'll get into that. I don't want to jump the gun here, but have the website open here, and I'm just looking at it, and it just motivates me and inspires me to have this conversation with Joshua today. And I just want to welcome you, man. Thank you so much for taking just a few moments out of your day to talk with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on. I feel like I could talk about agency life forever. It's it's so crazy, right?
Oh my gosh, it's like I was talking to my wife. I was like, man, being an agency owner is kind of like a soap opera. It's like sometimes you have these moments where things are just really good, and other moments in a split second things could be going not so good. But it is, man. I could talk about agency life all day, and so today, man, I have just a few questions that I have for you that I believe that I want to know, as well as like other agency owners out there may want to know. And I always tell Josh, I always tell the guests on this show that we understand that we're in a really critical moment in time as the advancement of technology. So many things are changing, and a lot of agency owners out there are probably like on the cliff. Like, should I jump? Not in that way, but like, should I cut this? Should I stop what I'm doing, or should I continue? And the base of this show is really just to motivate people and say, like, keep going, don't stop. And that's actually what I wanna kind of have this conversation with you today, like the journey of where you came from. And I would love you maybe just to unpack that. What inspired you to start Brink, or kind of fill us in? Did you have a group of guys? Was it just you? Kind of give us a story of how Brink was conceived, how it was birthed, like, and just kind of fill us in before we get started today.
Yeah, yeah. So, and my journey is probably pretty unique in that I was not there on day one at Brink.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Brink. I guess if you go way, way back, our founder Danny Vinnick, he got on the internet really, really early. I'm talking like 92,
Wow.
93. Was
Oh man, come on.
yeah,
Yeah.
super inspired by it. That's why we have the five-letter domain, brink.com, right? We were
I
there early.
love, dude, you're one of those guys that probably had a lot of offers of people trying to buy your domain.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so he started off like trying to do more of like a .com startup of he had some funding, and he wanted to do streaming video. And so
Wow,
he
okay.
was launching this thing called Uground Media that at the time streaming a movie was out of the question. We're talking 56K modems and all that. So they were thinking maybe like music videos, things like that. But it was
Yeah.
too early, I think. And so as he was doing that, he wasn't getting traction. They weren't getting a user base, but they started having some brands like Ford and Hewlett Packard knock on their door and say, "Hey,
Oh,
our
come on, man.
agency, our agency has no idea how to do like rich media advertising. Can we hire you to make us like rich media ads?" And so that's
Wow.
where like Brink came out of that of okay, well, the .com's not working out. I want to go into a client services model. And
That's cool,
so
man. That's cool.
yeah, so 2001 is when Brink was like formerly incorporated and all of that. And then it was doing its thing. It was some people in a garage based out of Tucson, Arizona. He was in LA and he had moved back there. I joined in 2006. So I started as a designer and front end developer. And
Wow.
we were working on Holland.com for the Netherlands Tourism Bureau. And at this point, Brink was mostly just building websites. That was like its main focus. And when I
Mm-hmm.
came into the business, I think I had immediately recognized that uh, it was a complete mess as far as like project management and that kind of stuff. So I just spoke up and said, "Hey, we could be doing things this way." And Danny was just like, he empowered me. He's like, "All right, you're the lead. Figure out our process and all that." And from that point forward, I just slowly started kind of evolving into leadership within this small group of people. Then
Wow.
I set out east and moved to Washington, D.C. originally and started
Mm-hmm.
really actually driving new business development for us. And through that, he gave me a partnership. And then eventually I just started like taking over the company. And so he's been retired now for a number of years. And
Okay.
then I brought in a couple new partners since then. So that's been
That's
I guess
incredible.
what 18-year journey of just
18 years.
starting as an
Wow.
employee to taking over the company.
And that's incredible because I mean there's so much wisdom I guarantee that has been acquired over the years with you of seeing from the early stages, the early moments, the simplistic moments up to where it is now, which from the looks of it, from what you guys provide is quite extensive. So I guarantee there's a lot of stories behind those years. Every year you learn something new.
Yeah, we've
I
we've
wanted to
reinvented
go ahead.
ourselves so many times too, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have that document? I'm just curious. Like, do you guys have that documented, like kind of a timeline, or is that like something you guys look at from time to time, or no?
It's kind of funny because I just set off my operations manager Luke like a few months ago. I basically wrote him a brief to say like go be our historian and document all this.
Yes,
So he's been
that's
conducting
so good.
interviews and he's compiling it all because there's a lot there.
That's so good. And that's cool that you're doing that because I think a lot, and this could be an encouragement for some of the agency owners out there, is like many times as marketing agencies or agencies that deal with branding of other people, it's like sometimes we kind of put our brand on the back burner and we evolve so quickly that we actually forget where we've come from, like how far we've come. And I was talking to our team about this the other day. And it's just like, man, it's crazy, like how far we've come and where we came from in those beginning stages. So it's really cool that you're doing that kind of acting. You have someone acting as a historian because, man, time passes by really fast, and if you don't like stop to look back, I'm not saying that you can miss out, but really, there's a lot of beautiful things that can be received, or people can be inspired by seeing that timeline and seeing where it came from. So I'm interested. I don't know if you'll ever publicize that or put that on your website, but it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, we'll probably make a mini documentary eventually,
Ah,
just so we
that's
can
cool.
kind of have that. Because I do think, I think clients too, when it comes to like pitch processes and all that,
Yeah.
they're really hiring you on how excited they are about your work and then how much they like you. And I think being able
Yeah.
to show that rich history is part of that, that selling
Oh yeah.
process.
No, that's so good. So good. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the agency philosophy and the focus that you guys have there at Brink. And I was looking at the website and there was something that stood out to me. So, Brink, you guys emphasize on building brands. And I was looking at this. And there was this phrase that stood out to me that was says worthy of attention. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. Like brands that are worthy of attention. Can you define that? Uh, and with that, like, what sets your approach apart from like other people that maybe be doing that same exact thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess to set the stage, one thing that's pretty unique about Brink as like an umbrella is I consider
Mm,
us a media group that
mm,
has three pillars, and then we also have a nonprofit off to the side called the BRINK Foundation. But our three pillars are the agency, but then we also do original productions, which we're doing both branded entertainment and then just art. And then we do distribution of films. So we distribute like nearly 100 indie films currently, and we're signing new films all the time.
Wow. That's incredible,
And so
man.
yeah, if
That's
you
incredible.
yeah, yeah, and it's always been. I mean, some of that is like we have somewhat Hollywood roots. You know, Danny was a Hollywood producer, and that's when he first started getting into the internet. Half of our team went to film school. We all, you know, we have like a really, I don't want to say Hollywood sensibility, but that like kind of cinematic storytelling sensibility that you see it in all of our work too. I think ultimately where that all comes together is I'm always trying to remind people the business we are in is the attention marketplace, you know, and I think there are some agencies that specialize in things that are like more about designing systems and all that, but ultimately most agencies at their core are being hired to solve an attention problem of like we need people to pay
That's good.
attention to us, right? And so within that framing and knowing that, you have to then look at that marketplace and that landscape and say what's working about it, what's not. And frankly, I think the attention economy is very broken in that there, first of all, if you think about all the money that's spent, you know, trillions and trillions of dollars that are spent and how ineffective it kind of is. And the only people that are really winning the most within that are like Google and Meta and all that, you know, the people that hold the choke
Yeah.
points, the
Yeah.
exchange of the marketplace. But there's so much fraud. There's so much, you know, if people are seeing the 10,000 messages a day or whatever the number is, it feels like it goes up every year, and
Oh
they're
my
forgetting
goodness.
all of them, then think about all that wasted money. And so
Yeah.
I always try to make sure that we ground our philosophy in acknowledging that and understanding that. And thus, you know, our goal is to create media that is worthy of your attention and that like it's something you seek out and want to find rather than something that's
Wow.
interrupting you. And so that's why
That's
it's
so
like a
good,
lot
man.
of where I'm trying to redirect um, you know, like let's brand building efforts, for example, with clients through the agency is into investing in branded entertainment. Like you should be making feature films and podcasts like you have here, right? Or um, even making like little games and anything that's like providing
Yeah.
a valuable attention exchange rather than just like an ad. To me, ads should be at the very bottom of the list of what you're trying to do within a brand building
Yeah.
world. Now, there's certainly room
Yeah.
for like the performance marketing advertising when people are ready to buy now.
Yeah, I love show marketing. I love like story mark. I don't know if it's called story marketing, but I love the concept of telling stories of kind of breaking the inertia, right? Penetrating, like you said, this static, and it's only getting more and more fuzzy for a lot of people and their ability to get their mess like be able to see things, right? And so I really respect that. I respect that phrase of like worthy of attention. I think that's really it's symbolic. I think even it's something. I think it's a North Star. It should be a North Star for any agency out there that is wanting to help their customer, not just show up on the next feed, but really resonate their vision with other people, or people to be able to understand their vision, understand their product, understand their company. So I really respect that. One thing that also
I one
stood out. Oh, go ahead, jump in there.
Real
Yeah.
quick, yeah, I do want to add. I do think that like there is a habit within our industry of a bunch of people getting in a room and getting really laser focused on, you know, what do we say? How do we say it? How do we make sure we fit in X, Y, and Z? And not enough taking a step back and be like, would I enjoy this? Would I consume this? Yes or
Mm,
no? And to me, that's 90% of the battle. And then the other 10% is then figuring out those other things. Yet if you
yeah.
think about the meetings you sit in and how much attention's paid to like the business and kind of their a lot of times it's the ego of like wanting to really control how they show up and not really
Yeah.
thinking about like that first step which is again the value exchange with being worthy of
I love
attention.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So there was another thing that stood out to me. So I see that you had said here that your agency creates entertainment for humans, not algorithms. And that really it provokes a question that I have for you, and I was actually just thinking about this because again, it seems like there's just this constant battle of customers wanting performance. They want the high analytics, they want the performance, and then the agencies they have to perform well, right? Like there has to be, sometimes you hear the famous words ROI, right? Okay, is the content, and I know that you guys specialize in some multiple different types of things, so this isn't just specifically for you, but you did mention it on your website that, you know, entertainment for humans, not algorithms. And so the question that I have for you is like, how do you ensure authenticity while still achieving digital visibility? Because we're always, I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard this from customers about, you know, performance, but then you're like, okay, you know, there's just this balance. So yeah, how do you ensure this authenticity?
Yeah, and that, to me, that is the ultimate battle and the ultimate question when it comes to, like, now we're starting to dig into like what when we want attention, what do we actually want, right? Because
Yeah.
there's numbers on a screen, right? Like, I could have something go quote unquote viral and 3 million people see it. We have 3 million views. But if those 3 million people then just like forgot it by next swipe because it's one of the thousands of other things they saw, then who cares, right? And that's the whole crux of, like, sometimes this is a business world problem, but certainly a problem within our industry too, of like, you let what you can measure guide you, but what you can measure is limited, right? And I
That's
always
good.
pose the question with my clients of, like, we kind of do like a Socratic method of a thought exercise of asking these questions, like, would you rather have 1 million people see it and then forget it, or would you rather have 10,000 people just be like, this is the best thing I've seen today,
That's so
this
good.
week, I'm thinking about it. Just like I also like to ask, would you rather have 20% of people love you and 20% of people hate you, or just have like
That's
80% of
good.
people be
That's
like, that was
good.
fine, and then move on, right? And usually, I certainly, different organizations and different people, you can be risk averse. It depends on the culture of the organization. You have to please your boss, all that. But if you get the right client and they're ambitious and they get it too, they'll buy in. And then
Yeah.
ultimately, measurement for me then becomes much more about bottom lines, and it becomes about these like numbers and dashboard of like, let us do our thing. Like, something we'll do message testing, right? We'll go use a tool like Swayable or Grow Progress. Those are both good tools where you can just like make sure that the message is hitting the way you want it to and all of that. But once you feel good about the creative, just stand by it, get it out in the world, run your campaign, and then just see what it did to
That's
your
so good.
bottom line instead of
That's
focusing
good.
on numbers.
That's really good. I love that. I love that. I want to kind of pivot a little bit. And this is not necessarily my wheelhouse, but it is a question that I was thinking about as I was kind of going through this, and I wanted to ask you today, specifically about the creative process, because in one of your pillars here of like about distribution, right? It really kind of stimulated. You said we distribute films overlooked by Hollywood systems. I think I got that right. Uh, and that kind of stimulated this question in me about like this creative process that you have. So can you share with me, Joshua, about your process for identifying and distributing feature films that Hollywood may overlook? It's just a question that I had, and I don't know if it resonates right, but I'm curious about this process of like how you identify and how you distribute these feature films, because you said how many indie films, like over 100 or 100 plus. I'm
Yeah,
curious
yeah.
about that. Can you break that down for me?
Yeah, well, I think typically, as far as like how we've assessed that they've been overlooked, that kind of like writes itself in that, like, if they are going with a indie distributor like us, that means
Mm,
they've taken their swing, and
mm,
A24 doesn't want them or whatever, and so now they have
gotcha.
to go
Okay.
through like a more independent route. I think for us, as far as how we evaluate, we are almost entirely driven by what moves us, right? It's there. There's
Wow.
like, we do have a little bit of the intellectual conversation of like, what is marketable, like who would this be good for, But a lot of it is like, is it good? Yes or no? Do we like it? Yes or no? Is it
Mm-hmm.
provocative? Is it do people need to
Mm-hmm.
see it? I think that you're starting to see a theme here with me where I'm just like, screw the
No, I'm
numbers,
loving
go
it,
with heart,
man.
go with but
No,
like I do
I
think
and I
that
love this. This is good, man. I'm curious, like, okay, so how do you pay the bills? Like,
yeah.
I get no, but like, it's so important. Trust me, it's so important. This heart, I love it.
But I do think that like Hollywood actually used to be one of the last bastions of that within like the business world of understanding like there was always the money side of the business and that was
Yeah,
cutthroat
man.
and ruthless. But they understood like you foster good creative talent and you let them go to work and all of that. And you're now even seeing part of why Hollywood's struggling right now is I think they've lost sight of that. They let, the McKinsey bean counters come in and now they're like
Yeah.
making Marvel movies where they're focus grouping each scene and just making these like compilations of scenes that don't feel like
Hmm.
evocative stories and people aren't
Hmm.
buying into them, so I think that ultimately part of what should inspire people about being an agency to like kind of take it back to I think what one of your core goals with this podcast is the fact that like things are just getting noisier and noisier. You have AI
Yeah.
coming in now, more and more content. We're gonna need smart creatives, and talented people to
Yeah.
navigate that landscape and stand out. And so I think as long as you're approaching your agency with that sense of purpose at the center of what you do, of like I just want to make
Yeah.
good work and I want to, whatever other goals you might have. I think one of our goals, as we put it, we want to be cultural interventionists and find
Hmm.
areas where cultures looking at things we think the wrong way and we need to like shift
So
behaviors
good.
and beliefs, and so we use that to navigate a lot of the choices we make of what clients we work with. We do a lot of advocacy work for like very progressive causes. We work on a little bit of
Hmm.
politics, and a lot of times when we
Hmm.
work with brands they tend to be like we work with credit unions for example because we think they're better for society than big banks, and so it's
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that we can like invest in where when we're going out into the world with these messages, and getting people to see banking in a different way, that's moving
That's so good,
culture in
man.
a good direction. But yeah, all of that to say, like, as long as you don't lose sight of that and you make sure that's governing your decisions, and yes, you're gonna make little compromises here and there, and you got to pay
Hmm.
your bills and all of that. But be driven by that sense of purpose. I think agencies still have a place because we have the
I
thing
love it.
that that nobody else has, which is like we can connect human to human.
I love that human touch, and that was something I was talking to our team about, just recently about, the advancement of these AI tools and different types of technologies is, it, I think so many people think it's going to replace us. It's going to it's going to replace all these processes. Like, well, nothing replaces the human touch. And I think that can follow through any type of agency if they keep their focus on the values, the culture, why they even got started in the first place, and what they can bring to the table, and also utilizing they're wonderful tools. There's so many incredible tools out there to be utilized, that there is a beauty in that there's a synergy in that, and I believe there's so many incredible things that can be produced as a result of that. And I think what you guys are doing, and being advocates of these these principles that you have of really, I would say, like, being original, keeping it original, keeping it real, is something for me. It's very inspirational, and I think, like you said, if the bills will always, in my personal opinion, the bills will always be paid. Everything will move forward as long as you don't lose the essence of who you are and why you got started, and the people that are working with you, and the customers that you are serving every day. Like, that reflects, and I think, like I said, it will all work out at the end of the day. Everything will fall into place. One thing I have, and it's kind of like shifting, and you can interject at any moment. So, is there anything you want to add on to that, or?
Well, I guess just one quick thing I'd add to that is the agency life can be pretty chaotic. It can have a lot of ups and downs. You got to make sure you're also enjoying your day to day. And the way you do
Yeah,
that is to enjoy who you're working with and make sure
come
that
on,
you're all
man.
having a good time together. And that's like, I think if you have a client that's dragging down your morale, you got to really look at that critically, for example. people. You got to
Yeah,
try to
man.
rectify that and address it head on. And if you can't fix it, you got to move on, because
Yeah.
if you're not enjoying it, then what are you doing? You're never gonna ultimately, like, you're never gonna last then.
Yeah. And I think with us as creatives, because I'm a designer at like I'm a designer still. I still do design work from time to time. Help my wife make some birthday cards. I'm always the go-to designer of the family. And but even though I don't practice it as much anymore, I think it's just something that I've learned more than ever, that like you said, I have to enjoy what it is that I'm doing. And I have to really always ask myself, and I was just talking to our team about that, is like really taking that evaluation, asking yourself, like, what moves you and what causes you to create, what causes you to have fun at work. And so really zoning in and on those, or honing in on those, or zeroing in on those positive things, and allowing that to carry you onward, even in this, like you said, it's getting chaotic, it's getting crazy in so many different areas of our market, of what we're doing. But nonetheless, of coming to work every day and enjoying that, finding that, rooting it into who you are and what you do. And I think that, again, it will manifest over for sure in everything that you produce, from higher level even to like people that are working on designs or videos, whatever it may be. And this moves to the question that I have, and we're almost done here with our conversation. What has been the biggest challenge for you, Joshua? I don't know if I say Joshua or Joshua. I call my brother Joshua, so sometimes I shorten it. But what has been the biggest challenge for you in what you're doing, like as an agency owner, someone who's running this company? What's been the biggest challenges for you? And how do you overcome this? Because the challenges are real. Like we were discussing before the call, there's so many things that going on within the culture of our companies. But what challenges have you faced that you're willing to share, and how did you overcome these challenges, whether it be financial, whether it be with the teams, whether it be with vision partners? Or do you care to share at least just one, even though there might be multiple, at least one challenge that you have faced as an agency owner and how you overcame it? Just to let us kind of bring us into your world a little bit.
Sure, yeah. I'll talk about a, a past challenge, and then I'll mention what my current challenge is. So past challenge was
Great.
definitely scaling, in recognizing that, like, the essence of
Mm-hmm.
what made us good was a core group
Mm-hmm.
of people. And when you started needing to then kind of like go out from there, that
Mm-hmm.
process of like hiring and getting the right people and having the right leaders and having the right org chart, that really fell apart on me circa 2020, where
Mm-hmm.
we're not even that big, but we were hitting about 25 people, and it honestly felt like 25 people were reporting to me. Like, I just did
Yeah.
not, and I was stressed and overwhelmed and working crazy hours and not having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, I had to really take a step back and recognize, like, what do we want to focus on? What do we want to be good
Mm.
at? This isn't
That's
what I
good.
want us to be. And we're at 14 people today. I consciously
Wow.
shrunk us over several years. We used to have a bunch of
Wow.
developers in house, and I was like, we don't need to do what, like, have development in house. We're
Mm-hmm.
focused on
Mm-hmm.
storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself out here, like, that's kind of the legacy of Brink, right? When we talk about all that history, it's almost like baggage, where it's like we used to build a lot of websites, but it's not really what we're focused on now. But
That's
yet
good.
I'm
That's
still
good.
out here trying to sell websites and apps and stuff to keep them fed. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like consciously choosing, okay, we don't need that as a capability, and getting smaller, and then reorienting around, like, okay, let's build what we want to be for the future, and
That's
let's
good, man.
bring in the leaders we want. And so now I know, I'm liking being pretty small and lean. But when we
Yeah.
scale, I feel very confident. I have all the right leaders in place, and we'll be able to
So
scale
good.
around it. So it was tough. It was painful, though. It's painful letting people go. It's painful being stressed out. It's painful. And then, of course, we had the pandemic
Yeah.
got thrown in right in the middle of that,
Yeah. Yeah.
which frankly made some of my decisions a little easier, because 2021 we had like $1 million worth of work that just disappeared. because all those budgets got slashed. And so that made it a little bit easier to be like, okay, pull the trigger. Like
Yeah.
let's
Gotta
focus.
make it
Yeah.
lean.
Yeah, exactly. So that was, and I suspect that's a common challenge as far as this is knowledge work, right? It's based entirely on human brains, and so
Yeah.
it can become hard to scale. You either have to be really good at hiring and getting the right people, or you have to be an agency that kind of commoditizes your work a bit. Which there's agencies that do that successfully, and frankly, they probably make a lot more money than I do. But that's not the kind of work I do. My work
Yeah.
is not rooted in that. So my current challenge right now is that we're it's hard for us to find the space and the resources to market ourselves and to thoughtfully generate new business ourselves. And we are now starting to make the right moves to do that. Part of that is my time and energy, and me being, I've gotten way out of the client work in the last half of this year, in ways that like I never imagined. And part of that goes back to what I was talking about before. Like you get the right talent, and then they're
Yeah.
able to do the work, and you can trust them. And so
Yeah.
now that we're in that spot, it puts me in a position where I can start going out there more and going to conferences and stuff, and like being the figurehead that can drive sales, and that's
Yeah.
been big for us. And then on the flip side of that, content, like I believe in content marketing and specifically like doing entertainment for ourselves. We did put it out a podcast of our own called "This Is Propaganda," that won it won the Webby Award for Best Business Podcast. It was a good like start for us for
All
like
right. Come
our
on, man.
content. Yeah, definitely your audience would love it. So this is propaganda.show, to go check that out. But
Awesome.
even that, like we made this very high quality. It's like kind of originally like a scripted podcast, and we're starting to move into conversations. But we put a lot of time and energy into that, and we're really proud of it. But then we got so busy, and it became hard to actually like market it and talk about it and put it out there. So that's a constant struggle. And sometimes I always use the metaphor. It feels like a hamster wheel, where it's like you're never. It's hard to feel like you're making progress. And I guess my advice to everyone and my advice to myself is you have to treat yourself as a client, and you have to do the proper investment in it and all of that. And
Yeah.
so that's something we're now starting to do, instead of it being like sitting on a list somewhere of like we'll get to it when we get to it. It's now like, okay,
That's so good.
here's timelines, here's how we bring it to life. Because otherwise you do find yourself in a big roller coaster where when times are good, and a lot of our stuff's project based, and my understanding is the agency of record, there's not as many of those in the world as there used to be. When times are
Yeah,
good,
that's
you're
for sure.
busy and your head's down, you're focused, and then it starts to dry up, and then now you're in a panic mode, and you're like, we got to find new business, and instead of having a sustained approach to generating new business. So I'm trying to kind of correct that and get us out of that
That's
cycle
so
we've
good.
been in.
That's so good. And like you said, once you keep those A players and, inside of your company that are operating and that trust has been developed, you're able to kind of do that handoff where you're not necessarily micromanaging, or all your hands are on all of the different processes and different, day-to-day things, which frees you up as, as the leader, the head leader of the company, to be able to look at higher level things and be able to focus in, like I said, on brand development or any type of other types of development that you have. That's always kind of been on, like I said, it's been on that bookshelf. And you're like, all right, we're gonna pull that off, blow the dust off, and let's unravel this, and let's make this better. So that's really, it's just it's an encouragement for all those that are watching this. There is hope. There is hope that you can get to that place. Your head doesn't always have to be down in the trenches, but really find key players. Make sure that your leadership structure is it's doable, it's in place. And as a famous, I was looking at this movie. I don't know, it was an old movie, but it's like, if you build it, they will come. If you build it properly, build a proper culture, you have the right things in play, the people will come. So all those that are watching there, just listen to these words of Joshua and be inspired by this, because your time is coming. And if you're not there yet, if you're watching this and you just got started, or you're about to get started, or you've been doing it for a while, you're like, is it ever going to let up? And the answer is yes. Being a good steward of what you're doing, there will be an incredible payout for that. So it's really nice to hear, Joshua, that is the season that you're in, even though it is a challenge. But it's a great thing to see, and it's inspiring for anybody, including myself, to knowing that those moments will come and they will have their own challenges. But there's grace definitely to overcome those challenges every single day.
Yeah, every
Well, before
season
we
has
get
its challenges for sure.
every
I
season,
remember it's like you'll go through the thing where it's like, if only I had six-figure clients, I'd be happy. Then you're like, if only I had
yeah,
seven-figure
right,
clients, I'd be happy, right? And it's like it's always these different milestones, and that's why it's like
yeah,
you have to make sure that you're sticking to why you're in it,
yeah.
and being thoughtful about that. One thing I wanted to add on the talent piece. One thing that I think has been a secret to our success, has been really mixing what I would call like homegrown talent with like acquiring people that are really well experienced. It's almost like if you're
Mm,
a sports team who's like, you need some
hmm.
talent through the draft and you need some talent from free agency. Um,
Yeah,
our creative director, he was a filmmaker and had zero marketing experience when he started at Brink, and then over 5 years became our creative director through like me
that's
coaching
awesome.
him and like kind of cultivating that and him learning. While our strategy director was at Wonderman Thompson before he was at Brink, and so he brought this like big agency,
Yeah,
working on the Pfizer account, and so now you pair those two together, you have like somebody who's deeply creative and talented, but a little bit like, inexperienced and sometimes naive
hmm,
about like the business side of things, and then you have somebody who's like really tuned into the way big agencies work, which there's a lot that's broken about that and all of that, and you put those two
yeah,
together, and then you get the best of both philosophies basically, and then out of that can emerge
yeah.
something better.
I'm curious about the meetings that you have with those two types of people when they come to you. Like, I mean, is it pretty diverse? I mean, when you sit down with these two types of people, how do you navigate that as a leader? Like with people that come from two very kind of different sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, I think probably with most leadership challenges, your job is to coach them through the almost like the intangible sides of the communication, right? Like make sure they're speaking the same
Mm,
language and on the same page and translating.
that's good.
So there is definitely like, you can tell they're so much more locked in now than they were even a year ago, let alone like 2 years ago, because you would have these moments where they're frustrated with each other and then they're talking to you about it and you're helping translate and see, well, you both have the right intentions, or you both have the same goal, you're just talking about it in a different way, right? And
That's
let's
good.
let's
That's good.
like let's translate and let's get it there. And then you start to like lock in and find the right way to communicate. And yeah, I think that's always the leadership challenge, is like getting people. You're not there to solve the problem, you're there to coach through it, but they need to solve it themselves.
Love it. Love it. Such good insight. Well, Josh, I'll leave. I have one more question before we go. So it's just to wrap it up, kind of put a pin in this conversation that we had today. And I ask this to all agency owners, and you are very well experienced. You've come from a rich background, and so I think this would be, as I said from the very beginning, a lot of wisdom in the different years that you've invested into, Brink, starting from the very, the simple roles all the way up as you moved up into this company and where you are today. So I think this question that I have for you, I want everyone just to listen in before we go. So, what advice, Joshua, would you give to agency owners, specifically those that are just starting? Um, what type of wisdom would you give to these agency owners? So that's the kind of the first part, the ones who just got started. And what advice would you give to those that they've been doing it for a while and want to scale? They want to grow. What wisdom would you give to these two types of people today?
Yeah, so I think if you're just starting out, one of the most important things is for you to really understand and stand by what you're great at, and don't
Mm,
try
so
to.
good.
It's so easy for everything is always a pull to be full service, because clients are like, "Can you do this? Can you do this?" And you want, and when you start to play that game of like, "Yeah, we'll take that, we'll take that, we'll take that," um, then you end up in the spot where like first of all, you're not going to do your best work. You're going to be overwhelmed all
Mm,
the time, and you're not going to have the space to focus on
mm,
developing your business. And then you get on that hamster wheel I was talking about. You end up just like kind of stuck. And so you really do need
mm,
to just like, why are you in it? Are you great at brand? Are you great at, media, like paid media, PPC? Like there's a lot of different things within the agency
mm-hmm.
world. Be sure to focus on it and then build like a nice coalition of partners around yourself, because then you can answer the
That's
call.
good.
If a client's like, can you do this? You can be like, yes, if I bring in this partner, right? And that way you're still at the
That's really good.
table. Um, I, I think if you are kind of further along and looking to scale, um, I I almost feel like I hit on this pretty well, but I'll reiterate that like
Hmm.
unless you're very commoditized in what you're doing, scaling is entirely about trusting, your kind of like second layer of management. And so
Yep.
before you scale, you have to make sure that like they should be proteges. It shouldn't just be immediate hires, I think. I think you have to be working with them. You have to be in lockstep with them before you build out from there. Otherwise, it probably will collapse. And I've seen that many times. Over my career,
Mm,
I've worked with a lot of other agencies. That was actually part of like how we paid our dues in building new business early on was, you'd be a subcontractor to another agency. And so I've been able to like be embedded in agencies and see how they work across the board. And so many of them, when they scale too fast, they just like end up collapsing pretty quickly because
wow.
they deliver bad work, and it's usually based on one big account and they lose the big account. And it's like, yeah, I mean, if you're just in
Mm,
it for money, you might squeeze a few dollars out of it and the whole thing falls apart. But if you're really in it for the
mm,
long haul, you got to be intentional about that. And it goes back to my first answer of like, okay, build a coalition, build a team of other partners you trust,
so good,
and
man.
navigate it that way.
I love it. Spoken from a CEO who's been there and done that. Joshua, it has been such an honor to be able to have this conversation with you and talk with you today. I've learned so much. I've pulled so much things, so many different nuggets for my own personal life as a leader, as a CEO as well. And I'm just so grateful that I had this conversation with you. And I'm just excited, man. I'm excited to see where you take Brink. I'm excited to see the development that comes in in the years to come. And I just want to say thank you for giving your time for today. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Ryan, and you're really good at gassing people up. I like that.
Well, Joshua, how can people reach out to you or to the company? Like Joshua had said at the very beginning, they got the brink.com, so it's pretty easy to remember that one. But how can people reach out to you personally? Are you on LinkedIn? How can people reach out to Brink if they have maybe a project that they can't handle and maybe pass it off over to a well-seasoned agency like yours? Let people know how they can reach out to you.
Yeah, I'm definitely LinkedIn is the only platform I'm pretty active on, and I really love connecting with people on there. So it's just Joshua B as
Awesome.
in boy Elhumeur Belhumeur. I'm sure you're gonna have a show notes or something with that in it. But yeah, check me out on LinkedIn and we can connect. And then you can also feel free to email at me at just josh@brink.com. I'm usually pretty responsive. I'm almost always happy to get on a 15-minute call if anybody wants to talk about anything.
I love it, man. I love it. Thank you so much again for your time, and we'll be on the lookout for Brink and what comes next. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
You too.